Sir Keir Starmer has said that police should be willing to support the victims and look into any allegations against Prince Andrew, regardless of his position and status. This comes as it's emerged the Duke has now been reported to the Metropolitan Police over the alleged sexual assault of a 17-year-old girl in London. But the force has confirmed no investigation has been launched, saying in a statement, "We are aware of the release of court documents in relation to Jeffrey Epstein. As with any matter, should new and relevant information be brought to our attention, we will assess it. No investigation has been launched."
King Charles is also under pressure, increasing pressure, to cut all ties with Prince Andrew after the Duke was named nearly 70 times in unsealed court documents relating to billionaire paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Prince Andrew was stripped of his military titles and royal patronages by the late Queen Elizabeth, but has recently made a tentative return to public life, appearing alongside the royal family at the church on Christmas Day. Prince Andrew denies all allegations of wrongdoing made against him.
Well, joining us now is the lawyer Francis Hoare. Francis, would you expect the Metropolitan Police? They're saying, look, there's no fresh evidence. We can't do anything more about this. But then you've got Sir Keir Starmer there, who should know a thing or two about the law, pushing on them to potentially open an investigation. Is that actually possible?
Yes, as the Metropolitan Police themselves said. They said they haven't launched a new investigation because they haven't yet seen new evidence, which suggests that they may already have seen this evidence, or alternatively, that this is just a repackaging of evidence they've already seen. I'm not entirely sure why Sir Keir thought it was appropriate for him to make those remarks, I have to say, because there's no evidence that the Metropolitan Police have taken any different course than they would for any other individual. He speaks as a former DPP, so that graces his comments with more authority, and it rather suggests that he shouldn't have said it.
The thing is, Francis, though, the police make a great play of, any time, any place, whatever happened to you, bringing justice to rape victims is crucial to the police. They've done a lot of virtue signalling about this over the years. The conviction rate for rape remains at about 2% or 1%. Now, let's look at what is levelled against the Prince at the moment. It is that you have a clear cast-iron allegation from an alleged victim saying that he raped her in a London house owned by Ghislaine Maxwell, and that, she wants justice. And then you have over in America the fact that he paid someone, what we're told is $12 million, not to go to court. I mean, I can imagine the police saying sometimes historical cases are very difficult to investigate. But, I mean, how much more do they want to open up an investigation on the basis of these extremely serious allegations? Doesn't matter that they've been made before. I would argue, why didn't you open an investigation before? And why aren't they doing it now? Surely the time is now.
Well, first of all, that comment about conviction rates is highly partial, because, in fact, when rape is actually charged, the conviction rate is relatively high. It's certainly within the average. But the fact of the matter is that the police have to investigate and very often don't charge rape for the obvious reason that, generally speaking, it is one person's word against other without any extrapolating evidence. Now, sometimes it's appropriate to put that before a jury. Sometimes it isn't. But you or I have absolutely no idea whether or not the evidence is the same as it would be for any other individual. Neither does Sir Keir Starmer. So it's pure assertion to suggest that there is any more evidence against Prince Andrew than there is against any other person whom the police decide not to prosecute.
Could they not
the use of this by groups like Republic and by Sir Keir Starmer is pure politicking, nothing more than that.
Well, could they not bring in this kind of interesting factor in all of this, that for some reason he gave a woman in New York who accused him of rape $12 million, saying that he never met her? Why did he give her $12 million then?
It's completely irrelevant. He paid that money quite obviously to stifle the controversy about him. Now, I'm not, for what it's worth, I'm not saying whether or not Prince Andrew is guilty or innocent. He obviously is entitled to the presumption of innocence. He's denied these allegations. He's presented some evidence that may or may not suggest that there's no reasonable prospect of conviction, which is the test that the police have to apply, as well as the public interest test. But the fact that he's settled a matter in the American courts where they have the most unbelievably ludicrous compensation rules. I mean, £12 million, you wouldn't get that even if you had critical injury for the rest of your life with loss of earnings and you were a very, very high earner. You still wouldn't get anything like that here. It's absolutely obscene, the amounts of money. So it's quite understandable that wealthy people who are pursued perhaps in order to embarrass them, perhaps for motives that aren't entirely regular, we don't know whether that's right, will offer to settle and agree to settle matters for very much money. But that's not evidence. It's not evidence of anything, the fact that he's settled the case with no admission of liability, as you said. It wouldn't be admissible evidence in the courts, so it's completely irrelevant.
Is it not then? Because there'll be people who say, well, look, you know, on the surface of it, it smacks as if you're in a position of power, you can get away with things. But would it instead potentially set a dangerous precedent if the Metropolitan Police did now say, well, look, there's no new solid evidence, but we're going to investigate anyway?
Yes.
Sets an extremely dangerous precedent that other people in positions of power could be blackmailed or people could make up false allegations and that would no longer have any sort of bearing.
Yes, I entirely agree.
That's a very quick answer to my question. I wasn't expecting you to be so succinct.
So do you really think, Francis? I mean, I understand what you're saying. If I was a lawyer representing an alleged victim, I might want to get this before a court to let a jury decide. Let's have a look at where these accusations have cropped up. Let's have a look at these Epstein files. Let's have a look at the entire situation. And let's have a look at the fact that, for some reason, Prince Andrew gave a woman he says he never met $12 million. Put all that before a jury, you'll win the case, won't you?
People say this occasionally, but a lawyer's duty always is a criminal lawyer, which I'm not any longer used to be, but it is always to stop cases getting to court if necessary. And this suggestion that, everyone wants their day in court to prove their innocence. Well, it's not for them to prove their innocence. And no, of course, no defendant wants a case to go to court. So, no, I don't agree with that.
But if you had the case, suppose that you know somebody did employ you to represent their case, wouldn't you use all that stuff to try and win it?
Well, as I say, I think Prince Andrew did release some evidence, which he said, and whether or not this is good evidence to release, photographs, I think, of places where things were supposed to have happened as part of his PR battle. Well, I think Prince Andrew would have been well advised not to have done that interview with Kate. This is obviously not a legal opinion, but it's a pure opinion, general opinion. Would have been very well advised not to have done that appalling interview, and would have been very well advised to say very little indeed about this case, and to defend himself in the courts if he had to, but not to say anything else other than that he was extremely sorry, which he didn't really say, about his association with this appalling man Epstein. And I say that because there seems to be little doubt. He's now dead, so he can't defend himself, but he was convicted. And so we have no reason not to say that. But in terms of Prince Andrew, the question here is whether the Metropolitan Police made the right decision, whether they made an appropriate decision, whether they were influenced by his fame or his royal status. There's no evidence that they are. They've already said that they will be willing to investigate this again. There's no statute of limitations for criminal offences other than offences triable only in a magistrate's court in this country. So it will always be open for them to investigate if they have new evidence. They say they haven't seen any. If Republic's evidence is of anything more than evidence that they haven't seen before, then no doubt they will look at that and they may or may not investigate. But again, I see no reason to criticise the Met or to say on this occasion, I have many other occasions, I have many cause to criticise the Met. On this occasion, I see no cause to do it. There's no evidence that they've done anything wrong. And I don't think it's correct or appropriate for former DPPs who are now leaders of the opposition to politicise that in this way.
Francis, I'm a big admirer of yours. Sorry to put you on the rack there, but you do understand. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.